Right, well, good morning all and welcome to the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting of Council for Wednesday the 2nd of December 2020, and lovely to have everyone here with us, and welcome to the press, to David from Southland Online. Good to have you here as always, David. First of all, just move on from leave of absence apologies. I don't believe that we have any, so Councillor Duff, as the Indigenous portfolio holder, could I call on you, please, to conduct the Welcome to Country? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Duff. Moving on then, item 4 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Do any councillors have anything to declare in relation to the items of the agenda?
Mr Mayor, I received none prior to the meeting.
Okay, we're just going to get the technology working. Thanks, Mr CEO. Okay, so we do not have any conflicts of interest disclosed at this point in time. So moving on to item 5.1, confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 4th of November 2020, and that can be found at page 5 of the agenda notes. And does so we'll seek a mover for confirmation of those minutes. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Do any councillors have any questions or issues to raise in terms of the content of the minutes? Those in favour? Pass unanimously. Thank you all. On to item 6.1, which is the Roads and Drainage Portfolio Report, and it's our pleasure to welcome Councillor Jones to deliver that report. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and again it gives me great pleasure to deliver the Roads and Drainage Portfolio Report for the month of December. The following are current or planned works. This information was updated as of the 19th of November. So our capital works program at the moment, the Mergen CBD, the footpath upgrade in Lamb Street, that commenced in January 2020 and looks like we should be completed by January 2021. We drove through Mergen yesterday and it certainly made a difference to the appearance of the main street in Mergen. So well done to everybody involved up there. Niagara Road, Boyneside, rehabilitation of existing seal, drainage, construction and flood damage repairs. That was recommenced again in October 2020 and should go through to May 21. Bitumen reseal program, the bitumen resealing various roads for 2021. It's expected to have started late November. We'll go through Christmas through to January 2021. The Bunya Mountains car park upgrade, reinstatement of Bunya Avenue pedestrian access, upgrade of current footpath and car park. That is working its way through and it's making a hell of a difference up there to the operations of the Bunya Mountains as far as safety goes. So that will be a much appreciated improvement up there and should be completed before Christmas. Burrows Street in Wandai, drainage improvement works for Wandai Sprints of the street parking, and that should have been completed already. Dingo Creek car park at Wandai, upgrade car park to bitumen seal standard. That happened through November, and I believe Councillor Henson may be getting a little bit of flack back from there on the cost, but as they see it as of yesterday, there is still works to be done. There's a reseal to go over the top of what's existing there and line marking to go. So once that is completed, that will be a very, very much improved rest area. Hood Street in Proston, curb and channel upgrade, also getting towards completion. Cumbia footpath upgrade, construction of new footpath from Cumbia State School to Francis Street. Myself and Councillor Henson went out with some of our staff and had a meeting with the residents out there, and we come to a good result that everyone was happy. So that's well underway and will make another big difference to the community of Cumbia. Tesmans Road, Kingaroy, construction of new footpath between Ivy and Dooncoona Street. You know, Tesmans Road's always been an issue as far as footpaths and all that sort of stuff, so it's good to see that the footpath's being extended from Ivy to Dooncoona. Wheatland school car park upgrade. That will happen through the month of December when the kids are away from school to give these guys an opportunity to get in there and do the work. Youngman Street, Kingaroy, curb replacement between Avoca and Alfred Street, also to be done through December. The key highlights for the Capital Works program: commencement of the new concrete footpath in Cumbia between the State School and Francis Street, which is jointly funded through the Drought Community Program and the South Burnett Regional Council. Our gravel re-sheeting and heavy formation grade: Old Yarraman Road, Reedy Creek Road, Silers Road, Silverleaf Road, Ushers Road, West Rurulan Road and Weckers Road. Now, I believe that there's some comments come back through into our customer service, how good Reedy Creek Road was in particular, and it's never been as good as it has as we speak now, so that's good. 3 local road construction contractors have been engaged to assist council deliver the Roads to Recovery Drought Program gravel re-sheeting work, which is good to see that we're using and utilising the local contractors to help us produce the service level that is expected. Patrol grading, we have Belogie, TH Burns Road, Pryor Road, Nopke Road, Bowie, Millers Road, Karingai Road, Brooklands, Darley Crossing Road. Then we just run through a whole heap. There's Bull Camp, Corndale, Coverty, Eastern Ango, Glen Devon, Goodger, Gordon Brook, Haley Creek. All those areas there will have patrol grading done. Kingaroy and Runnymede Road, Green Lane, Walsh Road. Yeah, roadside slashing and boom mowing at this particular time. Things are slowing down a little bit, but there was a little bit of rain that created a lot of growth in the grass. So we have Abbeywood, Bowie, Bull Camp, Chelmsford, Coolabunya, Corndale, Cushney, Dangor, Eastern Ango, Fairdale, Glen Devon, Goodger, Gordon Brook, Greenview, Hillsdale, Highsville, Hodgeley, Johnstown, Call, Kingaroy, and it goes on. It's all on the web page if anyone wants to see where the slashing program has been. Completed works that's worth noting in our gravel re-sheeting and heavy formation grade: Deep Creek Road, shoulder repairs; Mundubra Geelong Road, shoulder grading; and Ryan Regan Road, gravel re-sheet. Our patrol grading, we've been to Belogie, Bowie, Boyneside, Chipinga, Coolabunya, Coverty, Crawford, Geelong, Goodger, Gordon Brook, Haley Creek, Johnston, Kingaroy, Memorandum, Runnymede, and the list goes on. Barkers Creek, the roadside slashing and boom mowing, it's all there again without going and dragging on the report too long, but it's all on the web page for everybody to see what we've achieved. The infrastructure series, we have the bitumen resealing on sealed roads. Just a quick explanation, Mr Mayor, on the bitumen resealing program. Bitumen resealing works are completed on the sealed road network to rejuvenate and extend the life of roads and streets. The bitumen resealing process consists of spraying a thin film of bitumen across the road surface and then adding small stones on top of the bitumen film. This forms a durable, waterproof, dust-free layer on top of the road. This year, the South Burnett Regional Council Bitumen Reseal Program incorporates 75 kilometres across 49 sites within our road network. For the past 3 years, South Burnett Regional Council has specified the use of crumb rubber bitumen in our reseals. There is a benefit to the environment by using recycled tyres, and the inclusion of crumb rubber improves the physical properties and lifespan of the reseal over conventional bitumen reseals. Why do we bitumen reseal? Improve the skid resistance of the road surface, reduces the occurrence of potholes and cracks forming, increases lifespan of the asset. Typically, the useful life of a bitumen seal is 10 to 15 years, after which additional reseals should be undertaken. State-controlled roads, and if you remember back to the November report, I asked if the staff could bring forward a list of the South Burnett state-controlled roads, and we do have them here now for a report. South Burnett Regional Council conducts maintenance on roads throughout the region to promote longevity of the asset and deliver the community with a safe road network. In addition to Council's local roads, state-controlled roads through the region provide essential connectivity to the local and wider road network. Council has a contract with Department of Transport and Main Roads to undertake maintenance on a majority of the state-owned road infrastructure throughout the South Burnett. And the table below outlines state-controlled roads in the South Burnett region, along with the maintenance responsibilities awarded to DTMR. So the list goes on, Mr Mayor, and I'm happy to say that it will be available on our website, up on the South Bennett Regional Council website under roads and drainage, and you can see them all there, all these state-controlled roads that go right throughout our area. So that certainly may help people when they're wondering who is responsible for it. There is a map as well that shows you where they run and how they connect. And again, I would just like to congratulate the men and women that are in the infrastructure section, doing a wonderful job out there. And I believe that the road network, I can confirm that all roads have been completely, or not completed as a service, a patrol road at the minimum. And if anybody has not had their road graded, and I mean in the last 12 months, not in the last 6 days, could you please contact council and we can certainly have a look at it and see if we can get back to you. So, Mr Mayor, that is my roads and drainage report for the month of December that I would like to have accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for moving such, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors, any questions in relation to the roads and drainage report? Good to see that we've got that resealing program happening, General Manager. Do we have an indication as to what the average cost is per kilometre to undertake a reseal?
Oh yeah, the manager beside me is indicating around approximately about 30 grand. I think we're about $4.50 a square metre to $5 a square metre, something like that. It's really quite economical with a large program like that, Mr Mayor. But we can we'll take that on notice and come back with some costs around what actually costs us to maintain the network in the new year when we do the service levels review, if you like.
Thanks, General Manager. And of course, it's good to see that we provide that information around the state-controlled roads. Often there is misunderstanding in our community as to why certain roads aren't maintained to a standard that the community would like to see, but it's important to understand Council has responsibility for local roads and that the state government, Department of Transport and Main Roads have responsibility for those state-controlled roads, which are often those highways about which we receive inquiries. So thanks for clarifying that, Councillor Jones. And as you pointed out to the community, that information is now available on our website with a full list of those state-controlled roads along with the map. And it's good to see that there's some work happening on the Wandai-Tingura section of that state-controlled road. Long overdue, but good to see that it's now finally happening. The other thing, of course, is that we do undertake a fairly significant roadside slashing and boom mowing program, and it's good to see that that's progressing, not just on our local roads, but of course we deliver that service to DTMR as part of our program, General Manager.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, if it's okay, just for the council's awareness with the launch of the fire ban this week, there will be some suspension of slashing services through the South Burnett, so it's just there as a safety precaution. Obviously, some areas we still need to slash because we have high grass to do, and also within our parks and gardens as well. I think Peter and his team are still looking to maintain that, so we take extra precautions at this time. I think the fire ban's in place till the 7th of December, so if some people are wondering why we don't slash, there are precautions. Obviously, the slashes can be a risk in the rural, particularly in the long grass. So, just probably for the council's awareness that there's controls, and we actually have safe systems of work that we have to follow when those bans are put in place.
Yeah, thanks, General Manager. Of course, the drought's hasn't gone away, and the country's getting very dry with the hot weather we're getting. So we have seen some fires in our region in recent times, and we certainly don't want to do anything that's going to create a risk there. And of course, safety first always has to be the policy. I'm sure once we get some rain, the team will be back onto that roadside slashing program. All right, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just had a question. I just noticed the state budget was brought down yesterday and there were some projects for our region that were announced in that. So I just probably wanted just a bit of an update, certainly being a new councillor, just as terms of how the process rolls from here with some of those projects.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. I had a look at that last night, which was really good to see. A lot of the projects that were announced for our area are the TMR Direct projects, which are delivered through the Q-Trip, James? Yep, so which is the Queensland Government program. So I see Tangerine Bridge was on there for the start of design and those ones. So the projects that you'll see where you see footpaths and stuff like that in our region, They are through the RRTG projects, which are the Safe ST projects. So for that long list that you saw there, and you saw local projects within the South Burnett, they're the ones that are delivered through the RRTG. Obviously, we're a joint funder. Some of those are 100% funded through main roads. There's quite a few main roads ones there for our road network, which was really good to see. I saw there was widening on the Boondooma Road. Also saw that there was obviously work on Tangerine Bridge and obviously the Diagala Highway. Obviously the high risk roads program is starting to come into to play. Just probably for council's interest too, we expect that we will see works commence in Nanango soon on the Cairn Street intersection upgrade, probably early in the new year as part of that high risk roads program. All up, there's quite a significant spend on that network, so it's a really good outcome for our region. So the works that are delivered through for us, some of those projects will be delivered this financial year, and some will be delivered through the forward program in the RRTG. So they'll come through council's works program. The other one too to mention is obviously we've got works happening in Bayee Road very shortly as well to take a section out of there as well. So a lot of the projects that you'll see in the RRTG will be delivered in the first quarter of this calendar year. Of the new calendar year, which will be really good for our region. So.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker, and thanks, General Manager. And of course, it's good to see that the state government's continuing to support the development of our roads across the region through DTMR and in collaboration with the Regional Roads Transport Group. And good to see that Bayee Road particularly will be happening in the first quarter of next calendar year leading up to March. That's certainly long overdue, and good to see that the Council has been able to work with DTMR to get that project underway. Okay, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a quick one. It's probably an appropriate time just to congratulate and acknowledge the staff and the work. This is a work that's been, it doesn't take 6 months, it takes a couple of years to get this work. Now, we're talking the road work from the Nango through to Kingaroy that GM Aaron has spoken about is tens of millions of dollars worth of work. And there's a lot of other work coming in, Bayee Road, all that sort of stuff. You add it up over a period of time, this council and this staff do a lot of work that is unrecognised and unappreciated. So I just want to let the people know that are taking the time to watch this today, that there is a lot of work that gets done that is unappreciated as far as council and council staff go. And this is a one section that is very well under-recognised. So that's all I would like to say. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Right, thanks, Councillor Jones. Those in favour of acceptance of the... Oh, Councillor Duff's got a light on.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I had my light on before too, but no, that's okay. I just a question. I've got some people that are still debating that their roads are formed as opposed to unformed, and I'm just wondering what avenue people the ratepayers have if they believe that their roads should be graded, but it's fallen outside that what we regard as a formed road. And I'm particularly mentioning Whelan Street because that's that one in Heisland. A couple of different residents keep saying to me why and what avenue do they have to argue their case for that actually being a formed road. So just wanting to know, where that's at. Thank you.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, just on the discussions that we had last portfolio, and obviously aware of the Whelan Street issue, and it probably without putting into forum, it's been an ongoing issue since 2018, I believe. So what we've actually marked up for the February Standing Committee is that the roads policy comes to council, so the road hierarchy, so the council can have a look at what those service standards are. The big issue with the unformed roads is what I'd say there is that anything that's an unformed road, and if council was to maintain that, you would need to probably give officers some direction around how those roads actually go forward with maintenance. So council obviously has its 3,200 kilometres of road, which is maintained road. If council wishes to add maintenance to unformed roads, then we'll just need some direction on how that is. Obviously, that's a service level change. But again, it's not for us to say yes or no. It's up for the council to decide what it wants to do in that network. So probably just the big one for us is the comparison that we had a request the other day for maintenance of some 6 kilometres of a similar sort of thing, which is unconstructed road. For us to have gone in there and maintain that, we would be looking at over $100,000 to do that. So you do need to have some rules around what you want to do in this space. So again, it's up for you as a council to let us know We try to maintain the service standards consistently as we can. I think it's important for us to bring those standards to council in February and just have a discussion. Happy to take any feedback. The biggest one with a lot of the unconstructed roads that we've named, historically they've either been named, they may have been made, but they were never constructed or maintained through the actual road itself. A lot of times what's happened is obviously through the previous council is we've agreed to name those roads for emergency services purposes so that people can be found if they need to. The other thing is too, there's the historical subdivisions obviously around that need to be addressed. The big question will be is if we have a number of people who decide to live on a road or a road reserve, if council wants to maintain that road, it will need to construct that. That will be capital works, and then there'll be a maintenance increase obviously also as well. So again, I think it's just a consideration for council of what you want to do in that space. But there's obviously small ones, but just from our point of view, that again, we had a request for 6 kilometres this week, which we did as much as we could for the person, but once we became to an unmaintained section, we had to say no because we would have been looking at a 6-figure sum to do that work. So it's just a service level for you, if that makes sense. But in February, we look forward to putting that on the table for discussion and feedback, Mayor, if that's...
Thanks, Councillor Duff and General Manager. That's very acceptable. Okay, well, those in favour of acceptance of the report? Passed. Yep, passed. Everyone's comfortable. Oh, sorry, Councillor Potter.
That's all right, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering, as a follow-on from Kathy's, whether it's possible to actually get a full list of these roads that, so we can actually see where they are and how many people it's affected.
Through Mr. Mayor, what we might do is we'll may circulate that paper maybe before that. The standing committee, I think, is probably not a bad one. So, and also we'll see what maps we can send out as well to show what's actually open and what is road reserve. So we'll try and get together what we can and see if we can get a bit of a pack out for councillors. Again, at the February one, happy to take feedback at that time as well. And if it needs a bit longer to have a look at, that's okay.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just on another aspect to it, which the opportunity to share with the public and the councillors, the unformed roads don't contribute to our federal assistance grant, so they sit outside the road register, so they're not claimed. Councils have got themselves in trouble in the past, so when council decides to upgrade any council in Queensland decides to upgrade one of these roads and bring it back into the register, there is actually another series of paperwork that just happens behind the scene. It gets then reported to the state, it gets added to the register, it flows into the federal assistance grants concept. So it's actually quite a process when you bring one in. It's quite an interesting thing to watch how it flows through the entire system of government when you think this little old road over here that's never been, and it's just 2 lines on a map where it ends, from where it ends up as that to a fully maintained road. The other one is which has been through, council often gets asked about its legal liability to maintain a road. Council's liability rests, and this is the legal answer, not the actual sometimes practical answer, with the 2 lines on the map. We must maintain, in conjunction with normally the Department of Natural Resources, but we must maintain legal access to a property. It can't be landlocked. Legal access is those 2 lines on the map. So long as there's a road corridor on a map, that's where our legal responsibility stops. So it's quite often when you're talking to people, they say, and these are the conversations, as we say, we don't often get to have, oh, you have and you must and you have a, yep, we do, but there's actually quite a lot that goes through in the background to make sure that a road ends up on a road register. Just for info.
Good, thanks, Mr. CEO. Have I forgotten anybody else? Okay, thanks, councillors. Very good questions there. Right, those in favour of receipt of a report? Pass unanimously. Thank you all. Move on to item 6.2 on the agenda at 23, which is the infrastructure planning briefing on CBD Beautification. So this report seeks to progress a timeline of developing a concept town entry and CBD footpath plans for towns, and these projects aim to beautify the various town CBDs of the South Burnett region. It's recommended that council review the below information and move to develop a working group and advance the relevant projects to consultation. So, General Manager, we'll hand over to you to perhaps flesh out some of the detail on that, and then we can go into some conversation on the matter. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just with this one here today, today was that the next two papers are essentially about information for council, just so that you're aware, and it also puts in the public forum around some of the good projects that we've got coming forward. Obviously, on the back of some of the recent projects in Mergen and the KTP, what we've found is a lot of times if council's got to focus on upgrading its CBD areas or improving its livability within those areas, whether it's through new footpaths or footpath maintenance or landscaping or street furniture, what we suggested to council in its operational plan this year, which you've adopted, is it would be a prudent thing to start commencing design or at least concepts within these areas. And obviously that would be a key component of any town plan or community plan that's done for those regions. So through James's team, and James will talk through in a moment, we're looking to do work across the main towns at the moment with a view to having them at least concept ready, where we've had conversations with the community around what we may do there in the future. Obviously, with the CBD stuff, it takes a long time to do consultation, and there's a lot of input there that you want from the community to try and get these things right. And the other thing it allows us to do is, at least when we're looking at estimates for future works and projects like that, that we've got an idea of what it might. We've got at least got a preliminary concept that we can use to do some budget estimating and those sort of things. And obviously, probably a big impact there is looking to implement consistency across the region and through those community or town plans also give each town its own markers or signatures, if that makes sense. Not every town is the same, so we're looking for those key elements. And obviously what we're trying to do there is combine that with Peter's team to look at getting consistent landscaping through those CBDs and build a catalogue for those areas where we've got a coordinated approach so that we get a real theme. And just it's like anything, the better it looks, it really does install a bit of town pride if we involve the community in the development of those schemes as well. So James and his team will be hitting the pavement very shortly to start work on some of these projects. Obviously, a few of them are already in progress. Probably just a point of context there, just what you see on the screen there. We've got Blackbutt, Cumbia, we've got the Youngman Street in Scott Street, roundabout and medians through the highway, the Wandai CBD and the Nango CBD. Just on the program, and James will go through in a minute, just as a point of interest, we will be doing Mergen's landscape plan as well, but obviously the footpath's already been done in Mergen. So with that, I might just hand to James and take through, if that's okay.
Thanks, Aaron. As you can see, Council have brought down through their operational plan an item around looking to improve the town entry and CBD footpath plans for each of the town. And as Aaron identified, there are a number that we are delivering on. We have actually, in the background, already commenced works on a couple of these already, and the consultation on Cumbia has already commenced as well. So through Councillor Henshin and Councillor Jones, we have had some good pre-design engagement feedback around what that town can look like and some of the attributes that town has that makes it unique in its own right. We are looking to work on a series of plans at each of those towns to assist with the landscaping, the footpath, and then the engineering plan as well. So some of these towns do need a little bit of work in the footpath and the curb, and we are working on that currently. But in the background, we're also looking to try and provide some aesthetics as well. Something that brings in a different element is the landscaping, and that's where we need to bring in a specialist to assist us with developing a bit of a library of or a catalogue of tree species to support those towns. So we're looking at working closely with the Parks and Gardens team through establishing a working group essentially, and through the councillors for works and Parks and Gardens, looking to bring back some material for further review, and subsequently looking to engage with the community at the same time before we then bring it back for council for further review and potential endorsement if satisfied. So just as an attachment below, you'll see that we've mapped out each of the projects that were up in that list just before, and some, as mentioned, some of them are a little bit more advanced than others, and colour-coded them as well just to assist with the forecast of where we believe our time will be spent over the coming 6 months in 2021. So at the top, you have Mergen and Blackbutt and Cumbia. As mentioned, they're a little bit more advanced. We're looking at working closely with Councillor Jones over the next week to assist with some material for discussion in Blackbutt. And then as we work our way down the page, we'll also see that Youngman Street and Wandai are proposed for work early in 2021, as well as the consultation and the feedback. Some of these projects have a delivery timeframe as well, which we are working closely with the works team in order to achieve. So we need to prioritise those early on, which this program indicates. And yeah, very good point. Some of these also have a fair bit of integration with main roads as well. So needing to make sure that we take on main roads interests as well at the same time. We need to engage closely with them. We will need some administration and approvals through them to make sure that what we seek to do can be achieved on those road corridors, because if we get a little bit too far from what they would desire as an outcome, then essentially we're going to have problems. So we need to engage with them early on to make sure that we can achieve what we're intending on doing before we actually look to bring it back to council for endorsement, because as you can see, there's a lot to do, but we just got to make sure that we establish the connections and the communications early on. And then what we will look to do with main roads is also give them insight into the program that we have to know that these communications are going to be consistent over the months ahead and that we do have a plan. So working down the page, you'll also see that there is some further work that needs to start early on in Nanango and Wandai around a lot of that preliminary strategic planning and scoping of work, and just understanding what those communities would like to see. So there is some, there is some work that needs to happen in both Nanango and Wandai, particularly in Nanango, around some of the other elements that are known through the CBD, like the drainage that comes down Drayton Street between the roundabout and the lights. It's a known issue. There's an opportunity through this particular project to do something about it, which will assist both council and the business owners through there, and obviously the community who utilise the car parking. So we see these projects offer huge opportunity in improving the livability and the access to those businesses. And I think there's great opportunity for some collaborative work with the Parks and Gardens guys to get a consistent level of service as well throughout the region.
Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I know that Proston's footpath has been done, but they haven't had a street furniture plan or anything like that. Is there any reason why it's been left out? Is it just because, and there has been talk, the community's been talking about even on that other side, where if we were going to put that land between the hall and the pub out to tender, they would like to see that tidied up, because there's a big dirt path and maybe match something across the other side. There's a bit of action around what they'd like to see there.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we would be happy to add Proston if the budget allows. If the way we see this at the moment is we're probably going after the main towns this year. Just obviously we've got limited funds. We see this as a rolling program for other towns. Proston, obviously, you've got the footpath has already been done. If we've got some money there, we'd be more than happy to roll into a landscaping and street furniture plan through part of that process. I think the landscaping plan is probably a really on the existing footpath is a really it's to me it's what's been known as being really effective for the town. We'd be happy to look at it. It's just if we've got to do a little bit of capital design there, we just might need to come back to council outside of this program. What this does deliver to is allows council for the likes of these other projects is to get them particularly on the agenda for design and get it a concept if a project was to come through Works for Queensland or something along those lines. The other ones could definitely still be added to that program. So we're happy to look at it, Mayor, if that's okay.
Thanks, General Manager. If I could just add some commentary around that, Councillor Duff and General Manager, Mr. CEO and I have been working in the background and starting to connect with the senior executive team of council and councillors to see the corporate plan brought to fruition over the course of the next 3 to 4 months, so that by 31 March we will expect to have the corporate plan through the process of getting a draft out to the community for a significant level of consultation, community engagement. Out of the corporate plan, then obviously we'll then roll our operational plan. But as part of developing and adding to and maintaining the operational plan, which of course drives the delivery of services across the region, the council's priorities, we are moving towards developing 8 community plans. So we've talked a lot about, council's talked a lot about developing plans for each community that give their community the opportunity within their township area to have a significant input into what goes into those our planning. So those 8 community plans will go across, importantly, Blackbutt, Nanango, Kingaroy, Wandai, Mergen, Proston and Geelong. And we'll be very much looking forward to working with council and the community to roll those community plans out between now and 30 June. So that's going to be a wonderful opportunity for us as a council to engage with the communities about what they see as the needs for their region. We're very much looking forward to having this information fed into that process. As part of that, and through our corporate plan, obviously roads and rural roads and the gravel reshedding program will continue to be a major priority of council. We contribute a significant amount of money to our rural roads for our farming community and for our people living in the outer areas of the region. But in addition to that, the CBD Beautification program also is a priority of council, looking at aesthetics, livability, tree planting strategies, and also incorporating in that, as Councillor Potter is working on at the moment, the arts, culture and heritage aspects of our community into all of that planning. So those community plans will roll out over the course of next year, and that will be a wonderful opportunity for us to get those communities actively engaged. So for people out in the community, it'll be their opportunity to inform council as to what they see as their priorities and how they'd like to see those communities designed, and we can bring that together to make sure that we're then getting that regional connectivity inside that planning. So just a bit of an update on that. Councillor Jones?
Yeah, just quickly, Mr Mayor, I just want to acknowledge, you mentioned the names of the towns across. Would it be appropriate to say that I noticed we left Banark and Maidenwell and the Bunya Mountains out of that? Would it be fair to say that we'll address all the communities right across the region?
Absolutely. This is an inclusive process, not an exclusive process. So, absolutely we'll want to be getting out there and talking to people in Banark and getting up to the Bunya Mountains and making sure we're getting up to Maidenwell as well. So absolutely, a very inclusive process. The more communities we can engage with, the more conversations we can have with people, the more information we'll have to, as I said, to develop those documents. And it's pleasing to see that through this process, we're forming a working group that will bring together staff from different departments of council to work collaboratively in the design stages of the process. And perhaps we could look, General Manager, to get some independent horticultural advice locally just to make sure that we're on the right track in terms of species selection.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, we fully agree. I think it's an opportune time for us to engage, particularly with our local nurseries and horticulture. And I think the discussions we've had preliminary with the parks and obviously with the council themselves is, I think there's an opportunity for us to hold probably some workshops with those people within our community so that we can get them involved. And we can see when we do a landscape plan, the outcomes that we get are really good. So, and you get, those nice themes. It's easy to maintain, particularly for our climate. I think if we can work with our local knowledge, I think it'll be a great outcome for us all.
Thanks, General Manager, and certainly would like to acknowledge the work that the staff are doing in infrastructure in taking the lead on designing and developing these plans for CBD beautification as a follow-on from the work that you've been doing on our ongoing roads program. So thank you very much. That's very, very good to see. Okay, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just had a couple of questions because I certainly recognise how important the planning work is in relation to some of these projects. I just wanted to check, So here on the timeline, we've got survey and design, council consultation, community consultation, RFQ, pre-consultation, construction, procurement, finalised design for council endorsement, and then delivery. So is this like, do we have a documented planning process, or is this the internal stages that we go through?
Yeah, for this project through you, Mr. Mayor, this is what we're nominating to council for. So we have an internal process where we do consultation. Obviously, with this one here, we thought we'd put up a timeline so council's informed. Happy to take any feedback.
No.
It's one of the probably I'm going to talk to council probably in February around some of the project management improvements we'll be making as an organisation. There's some historical stuff, and note the question around project cost control and those sort of things. There's definitely improvement that we can make as an organisation in this space. To be honest, on the projects that we have, I think Mergen was a classic case where we did good consultation. KTP was as well. This is probably getting us in similar to the landscape thing. We want to get better in this space. So this is probably our first step at trying to get to more community consultation, particularly for public projects. What James and his team will do is go out there and do pre-engagement. So, they'll go with the divisional counsellor and the portfolio counsellors and get some feedback so we can develop up a concept. And then we're very much looking to try and get the consultation right, particularly we don't want to present a set of plans and go, no, that's it, that's what we're building. The way we see it is we'll go and get some engagement, get some concepts done, come and talk to council and say, hey, are you happy for us to go out with this, get some feedback? And that's why we'd love to start these projects now. Obviously, a couple of these have got budget attached to them, but we're trying to obviously get them delivered this financial year. So I'd note through the meetings has already got a concept design, so we'd probably be those sort of ones we would be looking to bring to council and say, are you happy to go to consultation now for these projects and get them on track? So probably to answer your question is we're trying to do better consultation. So this is our first of trying to get them in together. The big thing is similar to consultation is a bit like cost risk. It's very similar. There's never the right answer, but if we can get some right checks and balances and probably by having, this is where the standing committees are good, where we can bring these projects here early. And it's particularly this year is a learning experience for us and the council. And then next year, when we start looking at our budget in February and March, then we can say, which projects do you want to go to consultation early, and we can try and resource them early. So
I'm fully supportive of having a pipeline of projects, in the top drawer. I think that's really important. I guess probably more my question is actually around the project planning framework that we have as a council, what that process looks like for some of these, so that we are really mindful, I guess, of when we're shaping up projects, what is achievable along the way, and how do we deliver on that. So I guess I'm probably asking more around, project implementation, project scoping, project planning. What's our framework for that? So I probably would like, and I'm hearing you, that we're developing a process in that space, trying to get better. But I see that as really important because, certainly for our region, we've got to try to stretch every dollar as far as we can. And I think some of these discussions we need to be having more upfront around what we can afford versus what we would like.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it'd be fair to say until council goes to a multi-year budget, it's limited. The whole purpose of our operational plan this year was to the streetscape projects obviously are the hardest projects to scope and design. That's why for these ones here, we want to get them on for a concept plan where we can say, look, this is what we're happy with, and then we can actually improve our scoping estimates, I suppose, so that you can turn around and say, well, look, mindful too, like it's like a lot of the W4Q projects and, all the ones that we're here, we give our best estimate based on what we know about the project at the time. And a lot of times we have limited information around what we're trying to do. Given that the whole idea, particularly on the back of what the Mayor was saying, if council's going to go to a corporate plan focus on livability, we're going to try and get some concepts up early so that we can cost them earlier to give you some more budget confidence. It also makes it easier for us to deliver. We are lacking in this project space, and it's not so much a project delivery issue, it's actually a pre-construction planning issue up in the pipeline, because obviously we want to make sure that we give you the best information we can. It is I will say, quite frankly, it's an organisational improvement item that we all need to make. And as officers, in that project management space will be coming in February. We have a project in this space where we're trying to make sure that we improve our project management, and whether that's through systems or it's actually through training and development and those sort of things as well. So happy to work with the council in this space to try and improve.
If there was an opportunity, I'd certainly appreciate the opportunity to maybe workshop some of our previous projects and do like a post-project implementation review to see where, you know, where some of the, where we could have made changes or improvements. Where are the learnings?
Yeah, fully agree. We do some post-construction reviews, so through that process, but I think it's a really good one for us to work with council, particularly when we develop the budget, because is around what public consultation you want to do in this space. Fully take on the board the comments. The big thing for us is that everyone understands whether we make a budget decision or what level is the project at, and what level does council want to go to as far as consultation. Some projects we've done really, really well, and obviously I think Mergen was a big learning curve for us. We've done really well in the second stage of that project, and that was really, and that's why KTP has the resources it has, because it's a hard project to deliver. If we didn't do the consultation, you know, it's one thing that I think we've done really well in that project. We would be more than happy to talk about. I think the real opportunity for us is when we develop that forward program is to have that nice conversation with council about what your expectations are for those projects and how they might be developed, particularly in relation to these and any other projects that you want to do in the community space. I think it's a great outcome. The better you do. Yeah, I agree with you.
Absolutely, I agree. I'm hearing you. And I certainly think in terms of that consultation piece, I really look forward to the working groups and being able to be part of those as well. I think that's a great step in the right direction. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, General Manager. And of course, that forward program, particularly around that pre-construction planning, is going to be such an important part that will feed into our budgeting cycle as we move towards a multi-year budgeting program, which will be a significant step for our council in terms of rolling out the development of these very important areas around footpath treatments, landscape concepts and street furniture plans. But it's certainly encouraging to see that there is a rigorous process in terms of the framework you speak of under development, and very much look forward to that coming back to council in February as one of our strategic priorities for this term. So thank you very much, General Manager. Okay, so I'll now move that the report be noted by, put to council, be noted. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Right, let's move now on to item 6.3 at 26, the Building Better Regions Fund Round 5. And I will come to Mr. CEO shortly, but just as a bit of background there, so this item is to inform council of the upcoming release of Round 5 of the Building Better Regions Fund from the federal government, which was of course announced in October as part of the federal government's coming year budget. The purpose of this report is to inform the council of the proposed release of Round 5 of the BBRF. A ministerial media release occurred in September of this year, identifying that a future round of funding under this scheme is proposed to be released by the federal government. It is proposed that Round 5 will be seeking to release a further $200 million to merit-based applications that create jobs, promote economic growth and build stronger regional communities. Now, of course, the program guidelines are yet to be released, with the application portal not available and an associated timeline not determined. So with that, Mr. CEO, I might just ask you to give us a bit of introduction to the matter. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mine's fairly basic as far as we're seeking ideas, concepts. Council has a limit of 2 applications, but it's also actually been encouraged when we've been talking to other agencies to put in the 2. Maybe in the old-fashioned terms, a big one and a little one. So the report today will start to give a formalisation. There's been some ideas, concepts kicking around. Everything from tourism projects to Swickers has been part of our advocacy document. It's been discussed previously with the recycled water. It's really just to get some direction today about where you would like us to have a bit of a more in-depth look. The committee recommends to council today about it, so there could be more nominated to have a bit of a preliminary scan over, but we can bring it then back to the general meeting given it'll be 2 weeks, it'll be a very preliminary scan as to the viability of the projects. There's rail trail. There's Mayor's spoken quite often about a joint project with other councils. It will also give us then, if we are going to go and talk to a couple of other councils about cooperative works, that we've got, I suppose, the head of power, for want of the term again, to engage those councils and say, are you interested? What are you doing? What have you got designed up? So today is the first step in the process of getting a little bit of a concept on paper, and then we'll bring it back to the general, finalise the two that are the preferred two options, and then go from there.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I think we'll lead this one through a conversation process. So councillors, feel free to remain seated. And I'd like to now open the floor to start some conversations about some proposed projects. General Manager, do you want to add a little bit of, perhaps though, before we get into that, a little bit more detail around what potentially can and can't be included under BBRF?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just probably a couple of things just for councillors noting is that James and I have had experience in the BBRF of recent years. We had 2 unsuccessful and we had 1 that was successful. Depending on the nature of the project, just whatever we've put in the report too, just probably, if you don't mind, CEO, if I just make a note that you may need to increase your resources depending on the nature of your application. Obviously, you could be, depending on the complexity of the project or the human and social, when we did KTP, we had to bring in external resources to assist us to get that project to the standard that was required for that value of money. It's just a note for council. In the past, there's usually been 2 streams, James. There's an infrastructure stream and there's a community stream. Sometimes the infrastructure stream can be limited to certain projects. There might be limitations on water and sewage being excluded because they're business units. I believe, James, this year the focus is on tourism. There's 200 million available and 100 million is reserved for tourism projects. So just keep that in the back of mind. It's just a bit of feedback for council. But I probably just want to make the council aware that this is a highly competitive program. I think last year there was over $1 billion in subscriptions applied for the program. So you can just imagine the level, depending on the nature of the project you put forward. To give it a due chance, you may need to increase your resources and provide some budget considerations. So I just wanted to pass that on, Mayor, depending on the project.
Thanks, Aaron. That would be done as part of the report to the general. So depending on what project gets up or what council wants to invest in, well then, yeah, as part of the resourcing, get the ideas today, and then the general can talk about what needs to be done to make them a real application. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, General Manager and CEO. The advice that I've received from the regional development from RDA is that perhaps council should look for one significant project, which perhaps would be around that $4 or $5 million, or perhaps in that ballpark, and then perhaps one smaller project that one can come back to. So that probably needs to be a little bit of a guiding principle for us to work on in terms of developing that. And so it would seem to be the selection of 2 projects around that level of funding should be where we go here. So let's have a conversation about options, ideas that we can put forward so we can get this progressing. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've certainly got some ideas. I just, before we get started, wanted to ask the general managers in the room if there were any projects in the top drawer in the project pipeline that, in their view, we should be considering to put forward for this fund. And certainly they can think on that and come back to the group. But I thought before we start blue sky thinking, because I've certainly got some ideas of my own, and more than happy, had a number of conversations in the community and know there are some BBRF funding applications in the pipeline from our community. Just keen to gauge some feedback from our council.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker, and general managers feel free to tune in to engage in the conversation as this goes on. So, Councillor Potter.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Look, there's a few ideas I suppose we've thrown around before. Things like a community hub for mental health and things like that. But also something like a study centre or a learning centre for people. So they're just a few of the other things that we have spoken about. Because we've only spoken about them, I think it's probably too early to be putting them in the BBRF, but I'd really like to put them out there.
So
they're great ideas.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Potter. Councillor Duff?
just a question. So we have to match that dollar for dollar, is that correct?
Yeah, look, I can answer that. Thanks, General Manager. Very much so. The exemption around additional funding beyond 50% has now gone. So, General Manager, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it is matched dollar for dollar. Absolutely.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, 100% correct. Probably just to answer on your previous question, if we may, while we've got it, from an infrastructure point of view, James and I's review at the moment is we're probably fairly limited in projects from our area that would be active in that period of time. Obviously, if we were to look at another streetscape project, we've got to do a considerable amount of work to get an application up for a project of that nature on our past experience. Just talking with James, human and social projects would be our officers' thoughts to council. Our feedback previously from RDA is that projects that obviously focus on tourism, economics, and human and social outcomes through human and social infrastructure or whatnot are obviously actively more competitive. And particularly that was the difference between our previous KTP project and the one that got up was the human and social elements. That was a critical thing. So probably from our point of view, just to answer the councillor's questions, from infrastructures groups, we don't have any, from our point of view, we don't see at this point we have prioritised projects that we would be able to actively pursue an application in those categories. We could obviously do some minor stuff around a bridge or something along those lines, but human and social would be we would prove the infrastructure value, but given that there's a large portion of tourism and human and social, we would struggle, Mayor, just for our feedback and council's thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, General Manager. Really keen, and I think as CEO Mark's articulated, to see this come off the floor from the councillors so that we are able to document some of your, I suppose, desires around where we'd like to see our region go here. As Councillor Potter's articulated, human and social community hub, mental health and wellbeing, tertiary learning hub, that sort of facility certainly ticks those human and social boxes. So this is an opportunity for us and the officers to get some information documented as to where council would like to go with this process, and then from there we can then get that down into perhaps 2 projects that we can look to progress in light of the fact that we'll have only 5 to 7 weeks probably between opening and closing to get an application in. So it just gets us on the front foot around some of that planning. Councillor Duff?
I agree with Councillor Potter on the mental health centre or community health centre. I think that's, but whether that ticks the box for, it's mainly for tourism focused, you said, I think was what?
Oh, I think the infrastructure one's around tourism, but there certainly is the communities ones as well. General Manager, do you want to add a bit more information around, or Mr. CEO, around what sort of, typically what sort of things would fit under that communities funding program?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just I'll hand to James if there's any further details. In the past, we've seen projects from A to Z, to be honest. There's been community centres, there's been swimming pools, there's been libraries, there's been art centres, art galleries. And just because we said there's no transport, if there's a transport project within the room that council wants to prioritise, we're happy to work on that. So you're fairly well open to suggestions from the floor to fit into any category. Obviously, if something supports tourism, I think the idea, from what we've seen in the ministerial announcement, there's definitely a reserved amount there that they're trying to push tourism projects, obviously with the internal COVID issues and economy and those sort of things. So I think you would, if you had a project in that space that involved construction or something, I think you would definitely be open for an application.
Yes, Councillor Duff.
To Proston was very well received from the community. So I just wanted to put that out there. I know it's left field, but it certainly has been through the process, and there is a plan for it.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Duff. And of course, now that we're leading into conversations around rail trails, as most people will know, we've been quite public in talking about the Great Southern Rail Trail. I think Visit South Burnett, we met with them last night, and they're quite keen to be involved in that process. So that would be a collaborative effort between councils including ourselves, Gympie, Somerset and Ipswich to build a rail trail to upgrade the existing rail trails to provide that connectivity such that that would provide the link from Gympie Central Station right through to Ipswich Central Station. I think we've had some really positive feedback from RDA around the fact that the federal government are seeing those rail trails in very favourable terms. So there are some options there, whether it be Heysel to Proston or whether it be the GSRT and working with the other councils to get that done from Gympie to Ipswich. Communities, it would seem that the community hub, mental health and wellbeing, perhaps tertiary hub centre could potentially fit under that category. So that would be one that we could consider there as well. Councillor Potter, did you want to add any more before we go to Councillor Shoemaker?
I think Councillor Shoemaker first
But
she.
did you want to add anything to the community
Because
hub?
I think
mental health?
I was also thinking that if we're talking tourism as well, Mr. Mayor, you also had the idea of the park, Memorial Park, being a water park and a tourist area as well. So that might even fit into that plan as well. And I thought maybe we could sort of slide in Lions Park being a tourist park as well. So under that tourism side of things.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Potter. Councillor Shoemaker, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree, and I think there's some work that has been started around that master planning and redevelopment. So I guess it's just whether it's ready for this round or the next round, but certainly should be on our list. A couple of things that I did want to add to the list. I think there's been a massive amount of work that's gone into informing our recent decision around the Coolabunnya Sale Yard. And I do think that there could potentially be a project there in terms of redeveloping that sale yard facility. And I certainly would like to take our councillors along to the, it's not Billawilla, Bigoton sale yard and talk to them about some of the work that's happened there. So I think something to improve our sale yard, noting that it is an economic powerhouse for our region. So I think there's some great potential opportunities there. Certainly agree around the Kingaroy swimming pool. I thought just for a project, right now at this moment, we've experienced significant growth across Yalakul and Bundoomba Dam, and we've talked a lot about growing those facilities to be premier tourist attractions. I know the cabins are booked out all of the time because I've been watching them like a hawk for the last couple of months and I can't get a booking. So I'm thinking, could there be an opportunity? I'd like to have a look at whether there could be an opportunity to get some more demountable cabins for those facilities, even maybe look at the existing facilities and what we may be able to do around improving those to really, I guess, grow the dams. I know the recent Troy Casadale concert that happened at Yalakul, should we be looking to build a stage at Yalakul perhaps? There are some ideas there that I'd certainly like to workshop with the team around how we could actually make some, I think with, a project like that would not take a lot of time to scope up. We've got a lot of the information that we potentially need for an application like this, and being that it is a tourism focus, we can definitely demonstrate the high usage of those parks and those areas. I am working with the community groups, a couple of community groups who are putting forward applications, and certainly do want to meet with Swickers around their recycled water plant, because I do think there are mutual benefits to that project, and whether they are shovel ready, so it may be some potentials there. That's all I've got on my mind at this point in time.
Right, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Henson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. No doubt we've all got plenty of ideas, but I just would like to reiterate to the room and our general managers that we need to think long and hard as to which direction we want to go down this path, because I think and with the rail trail, there's positives and negatives for that. With our parks and gardens and with water parks, I think the thing that is outstanding in that is we've got to be very, very careful and diligent of what the maintenance costs and ongoing costs are going to be after that. I think sometimes that in previous terms has been forgotten, and that's cost a lot of money. that hasn't been probably taken into account. In saying that, in relation to the sale yards, I think the decision that this council came to that was fought long and hard within the community, there's been very little positive feedback in that decision that's been made. And I think that's a positive, great outcome in that the decision council made to keep that sale yard. I'd like to see the community probably acknowledge that a little bit more. And as Councillor Shoemaker said, there's certainly some work to do in a space there that could be more beneficial than some of the other things as a priority. So I'm certainly, and being rural, as you well know, well aware of sale yards and what's gone into many around, not just the southeast Queensland, but in central and northern Queensland. So, you know, just bring that to everyone's attention, that this maintenance on things after that whatever may be achieved is high on the priority.
It's a really good point, Councillor Hatch. We've got to be understanding the whole of life costing around any of these projects, because while we can get them funded, we've then got to maintain them a long term, and ratepayers are going to have to foot the bill for the maintenance of these. Now, that's not to say that we can't do the projects, but that's got to be part of our planning. I think just before I go to some of the councillors again, Councillor Duff, you're chomping at the bit there, and is that I can see Mr. CEO here diligently making notes about everything that you're saying. So we are obviously going to take, document all of this input from council at this point in time. Some of these projects will be a longer body of work in terms of scoping them out, getting community feedback, looking at whole of life costing. May not be in a position to do that. If we look at the sale yards, for example, we have council has resolved to undertake a business planning process, a commercial review that will look at issues such as who should actually own the sale yards. Should council establish a commercial entity where we, as you know, I suppose representatives of the community, council owns that entity, so still owned by council as such, but should we look to commercialise that entity, get that on a commercial footing? Those conversations may also need to be had with the tourist parks. So I think there's some of that fundamental work we've got to do before we rush out and seek funding for tourist parks and sale yards at this point in time. And as Councillor Henson's saying, I think it's a really good point, we've got to make sure we also look at our whole of life costing around that. So I think at this point in time where we're at is probably to look at identifying one major tourism infrastructure project and one important communities project, and I would suggest that we can get that at this point in time. Time is of the essence. This is going. The guidelines will be out, I'd imagine, within the next few weeks. We need to give our staff the opportunity to start prepping for that, so that we can move forward. So out of today, I think what we're trying to achieve is to get probably 2 projects down. We can get a body of work happening around those, but certainly not to shelve the others, but to keep them simmering away in the background for perhaps future funding programs. Understanding we've got more work to do there. So, Mr. CEO, I'd probably suggest that we need to look at. I'd be suggesting, and look, it's just a suggestion, that we do consider the Great Southern Rail Trail. Or I was thinking perhaps there, if we have 4 councils co-contributing, it won't be such a financial burden on council from the 50% contribution point of view. The ongoing whole of life maintenance costs for us won't be significant, because we actually don't have to do a lot of work in the South Burnett section of the rail trail, and that we can incorporate into that the Highsville to Proston component, and then as a communities project that we look at the Community Hub Mental Health and Wellbeing Centre that Councillor Potter has raised. It's my view that should be there's a significant area of need there at the moment around mental health and suicide, rural suicide. Around providing that facility where we could perhaps have low intensity counsellors available, have somewhere where people can go to get access to services and support. So, Mr. CEO, what are your thoughts on that so far?
Oh, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Happy to take the 2. One of the things I did just run through my head quickly with the different suggestions. In the report, we can list the different suggestions that come up and say qualify, don't qualify, short paragraph on what would be required to bring them up to a standard. So I'll just pick on the dams, for example. If the dams were not ready because of X, Y, Z, well, then there'd be just a short summary paragraph that they'd be considered for a future application. So we could do a short summary on everything that's been raised. The other one is probably the Swickers one, which is a shovel-ready project. We would then need to, would like to engage with Swickers and see if they can submit it under their own steam, and we support strongly from the sideline, or it would be better to come in under ours.
Yeah, look, the advice I've got from the RDA that it may be better for them to go independently of us, because otherwise it will water down. We could lose one of our other projects. So two independent applications, with our support, of course. I would have thought General Manager Meehan would be the way to go.
Yeah, agreed, Mr. Mayor. I believe that through the water study, they've also had some assistance from the Jacobs team in getting ready for that. But on council's behalf, I'm happy to touch in with Lincoln on this issue and just see if he needs anything from us for his application, if council's happy for that.
Yeah, thanks, General Manager, and thanks, Mr. CEO. That sounds like a really good process to bring that report back to council with that information. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, I thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly would like to go out to the Boulogne Shire and have a look at the community hub that they've built out there. Very similar. It was a $2.3 million project, and there were very similar outcomes achieved there. So I think it would be a great council road trip to go and have a look at that. I was just thinking with the sale yards, I know that there are projects there. There are things on our maintenance schedule that do need to be done. So I just probably would like some more information. I think the idea that CEO Marks suggested, bringing back some information, is a really good idea, because I see there are going to be funds that we are going to have to invest in that facility quite quickly. So I look forward to that. The other one I just wanted to add to CEO Mark's list was Indigenous tourism. It is the year of Indigenous tourism 2021. It was supposed to be 2020. However, due to COVID, a lot of things were put on hold, and they've rolled that forward for 2021. We met last week with the Blackbutt and Banarkin Heritage and Tourism Association, and also know there's some great work happening around Western Downs with yarning circles and things at the Bunya Mountains. There's some fabulous, certainly, I know we've all been to the ration shed, and it's just still gives me goosebumps. It's an incredible facility, and I know that there are Bora rings in Blackbutt. We went and had a look at them. There's a Bora ring at Coolabunnya. We know that there's significant sites around Canoon and around Maidenwell. So I probably want to spend some time and invest some resources in working with Cherbourg Aboriginal Council and potentially Western Downs, and trying to shape up a project around linking these Indigenous tourism sites, some sort of signage and some sort of story, make sure we're doing that in a culturally appropriate way. So I guess there's a project there, I think, into the longer term, but I certainly would like to work with council and these other stakeholders to bring something to the table around Indigenous tourism, and had some preliminary discussions with state development. I know there's some significant funding available for that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. And of course, the state government had announced that $7 million fund for Indigenous tourism yesterday as part of the budget. Just to give an update there, I certainly am in the throes of organising conversations with Mayor O'Toole at St George in terms of what's happened out there in the Boulogne Community Centre. And also, Councillor Duff has been also progressing conversations with the South Burnett Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Group, and also with her colleagues at Cherbourg in relation to options for us to work collaboratively with that community group, and also with the Cherbourg Aboriginal Council around Indigenous tourism programs. So absolutely, there is a body of work starting on that. And Councillor Duff, could you give us perhaps an update on other things you've got happening in that space? Thank you.
It's early days yet with regards to Indigenous tourism, but certainly the yarning circles. There's been, we met with the high school, Kingaroy High School, about a yarning circle there, and in Mergen there's Neil Stanley has been talking about trying to get a yarning circle happening in Mergen, as well as one out at Cherbourg. So there's a lot of talk, but it might not be quite shovel ready for this particular round. The other one I just wanted to mention was I wonder about something to unite all our towns, like we talked about the Stockman's Trail, or perhaps a mural trail, whether this is an opportunity, because it's tourism, to actually do and I know there's been a fair bit of work in that with the particular mural trail with Olivia Everett and that art group, whether we could pull something together around to bring all of our towns together with mules or stockmen or something like that.
Councillor Potter, what are your thoughts? Are we in a position, do you think, with the arts policy, with the Arts Development Officer coming on board, or is that a bit premature in terms of our planning?
It depends on when this would have to be done, because this would have to go through our arts, like an arts officer, but it would take a little while to get that through. Look, I really don't know, because when would this have to be finished by? When would?
Once they announce it, as the mayor, I think it was the mayor said before, probably about 5 weeks, or it might have been general manager. So once she hits the decks, it'll be full on. So whether it's in the new year, they had spoken about whether they would release something in December, but there's nothing come out, and we're quickly running out of year. So January for a March, April announcement, maybe, but we'll have about 5 weeks. So we'll leave it on the list. As I said, we'll
Yeah,
bring a
can we?
summary back on all these about possible or not, and that'll render it down, because some of them may not even, without running through the guidelines in detail. You don't want to, I suppose where I was going from today was, this is great, get the ideas on the table. We can bring it back to the general. The general can decide these two are our priorities, and we can give a bit of a summary about how long it'll take to get an application to ready for the rest of them, if that's what council. And I think Councillor Duff's point, they are 50-50 funded, so anything that you didn't have in future budgets or future concepts that's totally new, we'd have to find the matching allocation for them.
And I guess that's where I'd probably, did you want to add, Councillor
No.
Potter? Sorry. Yeah, thanks, Mr. CEO. I probably want to again prosecute the argument for the Great Southern Rail Trail. It may be, look, it could be, say, who knows, a $3.2 million project or something. Now, that might mean that each council has to tip in 400,000 and then we go to the feds for 1.6. That would be the sort of pitch we'd probably want to go for at that tourism infrastructure. We did get 4.5 for KTP. So we're not going to be, and that won't put us in a position where we're having to then compete with the big boys, some of the other councils that are chasing the $10 million allocations. The community hub, we may only be looking for 300,000 or 400,000 there to do something in that space. So it might tick that smaller project box, and that's probably my rationale for arguing for those two projects. The other thing is that the rail trail project isn't one that involves a significant amount of planning and design work. So it's a fairly simplistic project in terms of the design and the business case for that. Therefore probably be something that we could get to what they call shovel ready reasonably quickly. Having said that, if there are other projects that council sees as more important that we could get ready and get a business case stage. So the bottom line is that end of February at the latest is probably when we're going to have our application in. So anything that we can't get a business case around by then needs to be put on the list for next time round.
With that, my question on the Great Southern Rail Trail is, how much work do you think that we need to do to ours? With Somerset, I believe have got a very good trail surface. Our trail through our region is sufficient, I think. The area that I think needs the most work is obviously in Gympie, although from Kilkeven through that area. So if we all put in 400,000, what are we going to spend that money on in our region? I'd rather not take the risk of putting in, and I don't get me wrong, totally support what you're suggesting and all that sort of stuff, but my concern would be if we went into a joint collaboration with this and there's not a big need, like obviously we could make it superb and all that and gold plate it, but our rail trail is operating pretty good at the moment as it is. My concern would be, do we have this joint thing and the money goes out of the region to Gympie or somewhere like that to upgrade there so that they can transgress across there?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. That's a really good question. I guess the response to that is to look at the economic benefit that flows from it, more so than the actual physical infrastructure that we could tangibly see. So at the moment, one of the inhibitors for rail trail traffic coming into our region is the fact that the Gympie to, well, the Kilkeven to Mergen section does need a lot of work. Now, at the moment, for people, they've really got to, you start in Mergen, basically, at this point in time. So for a lot of people that are coming out of northern end of the Sunshine Coast, to be able to, and of course you can't get a train to Mergen. So if you can imagine people coming out of Brisbane, they can get a train to Gympie, they can hop off the train and they can do a 7-day ride to Ipswich, jump back on the train and get back into Fortitude Valley or wherever they might live. Okay. At the moment, you can't do that because you've got to basically get yourself, because the Kilkeven to our boundary is particularly challenging section of the trail. For a lot of people, it's just not rideable, for want of a better term. So I guess what I'm suggesting is that it may not be that we have an equal contribution from each council. Some councils might have to put more than others. I'm just really speaking hypothetically, but it's about, I think, the economic benefit for our region. The business case could potentially demonstrate that it's worth an investment from us to be able to bring people from that Gympie train station through our region. So that's something we'd have to look at. Yeah.
I know that because it's Kingaroy to Kilkeven rail trail, that it gives us a bad reputation, and the fact that you can't actually get from Kingaroy to Kilkeven. It's people attempt it, but it's very, there's some parts there you just got to walk. It's that, and push your bike, like hold your bike and walk, because it's that bad. So I do think it would help with the whole concept. If we could fix that section up, would be hugely beneficial to this section for us, for our part of the South Burnett.
So just on the community hub one then, you're saying, we might only be a $400,000 cost. What do you suggest? Like, how is that going to take shape? How do you think that's going to form? How do you think it's going to interact? And like, where are we going to put it? Basically, where those sort of suggestions. And I know it's a question that's off the cuff.
Yeah, Councillor, what today is this? This is why, and my earlier point is we just wanted to get the ideas of what people were thinking out on the table. So, I suppose to be candid, is that we didn't get to January and someone said, "Oh, can you guys go and have a look at this, please?" And all of a sudden, we're scrambling to try and work out what the specs are and trying to put an application together. So, if we could leave really, really good questions, if we could leave them to the December general, and we can go back and just have a quick look and say, okay, we'll write to all our neighbouring councils, like with the rail trail, and say, are you interested? If 3 out of the 4 come back and say, no, not for us, please, well, that's easy, job's done. So if all 4 councils say, yep, we'd love the idea, we've already done this design work and we've already done this and that, and so we can start to coordinate and say, put this together. The community hub, wellbeing, tertiary learning centre, so 1 and 4 probably roll into each other, 1, 2 and 3 roll into each other. So that's ideas today, and then we'll bring back a bit of a report, and it'll still be like, we'll still seek council's direction to prioritise, absolutely, but we'll say, yeah, no, that's going to cost you X, or guesstimates. I'll preface them at this stage. This will do this, this will do that. Indigenous tourism, terrific work. What does that actually mean? Yeah, and where's it going? Future project, yep, tick. The 2 dams, master planning for the dams. We've got good operators in now. Okay, what's the next stage of that? Tick, yep. So that one's out. Sale yards, we've got the resolution. Yep, we're going to business plan. There is maintenance work that needs to be done out there, so that'll roll into life come the new year now. That we've got a decision on what's happening with those yards, and that's not a bad thing. It's just now with this firm ground we can start to go and do things. So a lot of these questions, the report won't be the be all and end all, but it'll also give a bit of a direction as to opportunities to, okay, that one might fly, that one won't, because of not only resourcing but lack of cooperate, but it's not a priority for our neighbouring councils. It's not. There was also, which we would have the correspondence, a request that came through a little while back about a loop off the trail through the Moffatdale wine area. Now, no idea whether that would fly either, but I mean, there's that. The mountain bikers over at Gordon Brook, we'll go off and pull a few of those things together and just have a look and say, okay, but predominantly with the Great Southern Rail Trail, one of the first questions, which we'll get those correspondence out tomorrow, will be, do the other councils want to formally engage in this process? If that's a yes or a no, well then that'll flow whatever happens next. If that makes sense.
I guess that's my point. Like, there is a huge number of potential improvements that we could make in our own region just on the rail trail, with the mountain bike club out through Wandai and all that sort of stuff. My opinion, as I sit here looking at those top 10, they're all worthy programs, but I would move 9 and 10 to the top as far as your tourism, and I would put Coolabunnya Sale Yards and Memorial Park along with the community hub somewhere in for mental health. That's where I see benefit for the region. But anyway, I just think Indigenous tourism, that Drovers Trail right across the region, I can see the significant benefit to our region. The Great Southern Rail Trail, totally on board with what you're saying. I just think that with the opportunities of our, I get it all, but just me personally, I just like that on Indigenous tourism, mural, Drovers Trail, and as far as tourism goes, and that Memorial Park, Coolabunnya Sale Yards, I think rate highly for me as far as community, and that go along with keeping in mind that we're having talks, and I won't say anything now, and I'll talk in private, but as far as community hubs, mental health issues that we may be able to have in the future, with conversations that we've had as council, with opportunities that may come up.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. I don't think anyone would disagree. Problem will be, the challenge could well be Memorial Park and Coolabunnya Sale Yards, where I can't see us being in a position to progress an application on those by February. No. There's a lot more master planning has to be done around, particularly Coolabunnya. How are we going to get that on a commercial footing? We've got to make sure we're doing our numbers around our forward forecasts. So wherever we're investing, we can demonstrate to the community we're going to get a return on that investment. I think with Memorial Park, there's a lot more master planning that needs to be done. I know Manager Leanne's got work that she's undertaking over the next 12 months there. In terms of Indigenous tourism and mural Drovers Trails, I don't know that in that there'll be a project that ticks the big box on that tourism infrastructure. If we're looking for that $2 million project, I don't think we've got a project inside those two areas that would tick that box at this point in time. And that would be my concern. As to great concepts, great time to do them, but are we actually ready, and would they tick the boxes for that larger tourism infrastructure application? Possibly not. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of the Indigenous tourism piece, I think it could potentially be a smaller BBRF funding grant, being that what we really need is some funds to pull all the stakeholders together, because Western Downs are doing their own thing. There's opportunities for us to work in with our existing neighbouring councils. So I'm probably just keen in that report, CEO Mark, just to understand with the BBRF, I understand with your smaller projects, sometimes you can get some preliminary funding to help out with further planning or engaging in consultants, because with the appropriate expertise to help with this, because I think really when we talk about Indigenous tourism, we're talking about sharing our story and sharing our heritage and our culture across the region, and linking existing spaces and places of significance. So I'm probably just keen to understand with those guidelines. I know the mountain bike club's sort of going through a similar process where we're looking at how do we get the expertise we need to really go forth with a giant project.
Yep, thanks for the question. The hesitation to start with is around 4 guidelines. They do tweak them each round, so you do like to see what they actually put on paper first up. Certainly, if I may, I was brought up the page for round 5 at the moment. It's talking about the community investment stream, funds community development activities, including but not limited to new or expanded local events, strategic regional plans, leadership and capability building on activities. So that's nice and broad, and it would depend on how they define regional in that concept as to So it actually may be that the Great Southern Rail Trail, that what ends up being submitted, for example, would be the strategic regional plan for it to get it construction shovel ready. So that may be, and that's why I'm again a little bit hesitant to go into too much detail today. Today, we'll have a go back and have a look at some of these and get the best information we can pending our release of the guidelines, and we can marry them up to the round 4 guidelines and see, okay, would they have fitted within the round 4 guidelines? If round 5 is the same, but they do tweak them a little bit each time. So I would like to actually see the guidelines before I say definitively yes or no.
Yeah, thanks, CEO Mark. I think the Treasurer has made it very clear in his budget statement that round 5 of BBRF is really about, to get something up, it's going to be about job creation. So they're looking for projects that can hit the ground running, create job, and that's why there's a big focus on infrastructure, a big focus on building physical assets, so that they can see those job creation outcomes. This round 5 is going to very much go to the COVID response, and that's why you'll see that job creation, I think, infrastructure building priority in this round would be my expectation, Mr. CEO. When those guidelines come out, I think they'll be tailored that way. Councillor Duff, you had...
I just want to add, I think we talked about last term of council doing a big upgrade to the Wandai Sports Ground, and the other day when we were at the Dooma Dam, there was a couple suggested that we have somewhere we could do little athletics and stuff like that. And I know there was I think General Manager O'May, was Leanne working on some big plan for Wandai? It was meant to be a big community, like sports field. We talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah, no, we had looked at putting together an application and for one of the sporting grants, and so that was looking at that new lighting and the irrigation infrastructure. Basically, yeah, just trying to getting the clubs to work together a bit. But it was upgrading the lighting and infrastructure, and that was through one of the Queensland government, the Get Active sporting grants. And that's still sitting there. It was just that last funding round of it got pulled that we were expecting in March, but COVID put a stop to that going ahead. So we're just waiting for that next sporting runs to come out.
Thanks, General Manager. Councillor Hensham?
Yeah, as well as the Wandai Sports Ground, I know there's work in progress in relation to the Wandai showgrounds and racetrack with the grandstand design and costing and things with that. So that's a multi-purpose venue there as well. That's pretty important for not only tourism, like caravans now, they're encouraging them to go up there, but there's plans in the pipeline for that as well.
Okay, councillors, anything else? Councillor Potter?
Yeah, just one thing. I'm actually just looking at this now, and we talked before about combining the Great Southern Railway with the Highsville, so 1 and 4. But I'm actually wondering now whether we could actually incorporate those in with 9 and 10. We could actually sit down and work it together quite well. That, Indigenous tourism, signage on the rail trail and everything like that. So, and some of the artwork could be, Indigenous artwork on the walls. So we could probably work those 4 together almost.
Apologies. If we pull up stumps now, because that's getting to do a paragraph, I'll have a short novel by the time I do a paragraph on all those for the next meeting. If we can go off and have a look, because I'm sure we'll find 2 priorities out of that list, Mr. Mayor, and then we'll bring a report back to the General.
So before, just one more. Can I just add one more? It's because I know that you talked about the Wandai Showgrounds, the Mergan Sports Association. I was at the meeting last night. They're trying to upgrade to get lighting that will be able to for cricket, the whole lot, certain lux. It's a big project. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that one could be a small project if we were looking for a smaller one.
So Councillor Duff, could that be one that they could submit an application on? Do they have a lease over that?
Well,
facility,
yes,
or
they
we
do, but do they have to particular funding round?
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
Yes, they do.
that's going to be challenging for them. It is owned by us, and we do. I think council does fund the lighting at this point. We pay for the lighting, so they're trying to upgrade it. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Councillor Duff. Have we given CEO Mark enough to work on? He's got to bring a report back. And is there? We close it up. Anyone else want to add anything else? Councillor Jones.
I just want to say, Mr Mayor, that we're starting to lose the whole point of it here now. I can start throwing in the Blackbutt Rugby League footy ground, because the footy club we got to stay realistic to what we're doing here and keeping on track with it. Yeah, I can spend 5 million on Blackbutt. So, I'm just saying it's just an option. So we just got to keep it real.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. So we've got a good list there, I think, haven't we? As you said, we've done enough. CEO Mark's we'll go away now, bring a report back to the general, the next ordinary meeting of council with some recommendations, and we can consider those at that time. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mr. CEO. So do we need to resolve anything there?
We would need that moved and seconded, please.
Yep. So we'll just move and second. I'll move that CEO bring a report back to the general meeting.
The committee recommends to
Okay.
council, so we've
here we go.
worded
I'll
her
read
up.
that. Yep, as
Oop.
on the screen.
Oop.
Where are we? Thanks, Linnell. The committee recommends to council the following options for BBRF round 5 applications be considered as stated there. So I'll move that. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Potter. Those in favour? Pass unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, very good. Shall we break for morning tea and then come back for items 6.4 and 7.1? We'll resume at 11 a.m. So I'll move that we adjourn the meeting until 11 a.m. Have a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I'll now move that we resume the meeting. Have a second for that. Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. So that's a procedural motion. So that's all we need to do there. Very good. Thanks, Mr. CEO. Okay, now we're up to item 6.4, which is the infrastructure planning briefing on asset and service level review. Can we go straight to you, General Manager? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably just a short one for council on light of some of the information we presented last week. It's just we wanted to present to the standing committee a draft timeline around the asset management works that we'll do in line with the budget process coming into the new year. I think that fits to all the conversation we've had this morning about trying to get us into multi-year programs and just see, particularly on the back of the corporate plan coming into March, it's a great opportunity to review our assets and our sustainability around what we want to go forward. Particularly the main focus for us, obviously, is to review our depreciation too, around what assets we fund and what we don't fund. And I think it's a great opportunity for the organisation, and particularly the council, to let known what it wants to fund as far as service levels across its assets. And it's an opportunity for us, particularly as officers, to come forward and share some of those ideas and give council information that you can make a decision around. I think that's the big thing that we're looking for there. Without stealing too much of JD's thunder, what we're probably looking to do is officers through the Asset Steering Committee present that information up through council. And the idea is that we workshop it over a period of time, so we can come and give some information, get some feedback, and then come away and make those decisions. The big one there, obviously, is to tie that in with Susan and her team around her budget process and make sure that when we're developing up our operational budgets in line with our service levels, that we can consider those things at the same time. And the big one there too is obviously looking to use some independent facilitation around some of the asset strategies, and we're probably looking to get someone in who's obviously experienced in that space and obviously has a strong financial background as well. So with that, Mayor, if you may, I might just give to James to give just a slight overview. And
Thanks, Aaron. What we have before us is around the asset and service level review item, and it was a significant item that this council detailed through its operational plan before you on the first page is all the elements that make that up. As you can see, there's a number of items that contribute quite strongly back towards our dedication and interest in wanting to get some sustainability in this space. So off the back of this is also just a bit of a timeline over the coming 6 months. So very much in line with what we've done in the CBD beautification space. We've mapped out where we believe items need to occur and subsequent actions that come off the back of that. So at the moment, we're working through a lot of the valuation items with the asset owners as well. So we're doing a comprehensive reval of our water and wastewater assets and desktop reviews for the other asset owners off the back of last financial year's comprehensive suite that was undertaken. From there, we're looking at undertaking a bit of a service level review and understanding what our costings are, is very much in line with what Aaron just mentioned, trying to map out the financial timeline that complements this. And with some of that, what you'll see in item 5 is around that investment logic mapping, and essentially that is the external facilitator that Aaron was just touching on. So looking to do that, probably within the end of the third quarter of this financial. And off the back of this, wanting to then map out the development of the 10-year capital works program across the asset classes as well, and wanting to then proceed into budget mode once that is known and established. So this information is just to assist council today and understand where we're going with the asset reviews, and looking to have some of those discussions through subsequent workshops with you as well. So in that, I'll leave it with you.
Oh, thanks, GM and Manager James. It's clearly a very advanced infrastructure planning process that you're putting together here, and I want to congratulate you on that. This is excellent, particularly as we start to then tie this 10-year works program into our long-term financial planning process. So clearly there's going to be some real value in that moving forward in terms of getting a lot more, as we talked about, evidence-based, a lot more science around the programming of our works, both in terms of the capital upgrades and the maintenance. So, well, on behalf of council, I'd like to congratulate you on embarking in this work. It would be, I'd suggest, state-of-the-art in terms of works planning our region's undertaking.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just on the back of the development of that, I just want to acknowledge the whole steering group, and particularly Susan and her team are helping us out in this project. I think it's, we've had discussions obviously with yourself. I think there's a wonderful opportunity for us to work with finance in getting some service levels together around what's sustainable, and particularly around those long-term financial plans. So yeah, we're looking forward to working with council on this project. So thank you, Mayor. We'll pass that on to all the asset owners that are involved.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question. So, because I did put forward a request around whole of life costing for a recent project. So, I just want to check. So, through this work, the timeline will be, toward the middle of next year, we'll have a better understanding in terms of the whole of life costing process. Because from the request I put forward, we don't have the data because of our asset management maturity. So this is part of the asset management maturity, sort of the process that we're undertaking. Yes.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, 100%. So last year was the first year. So a lot of the questions you're asking around systems and maturity, and the council is very much catching up. Last year was the first year that we've had the full-blown asset management plans, and obviously the improvement plan came out of that. Lynelle, if you just scroll up for us, please. Just what we're trying to do, in these identified items here that you see there are directly out of your operational plan, they actually came out of the asset management improvement plan from last year. So what I think we'll end up doing, or what I won't think we'll end up doing, is going through and doing some first principle estimates on maintenance costs and whole of life costs. And that means we can start to develop up models. And again, it may be that you don't do it for everything, but for certain projects, say like your more complex projects, at least you've got some base data to start looking at what your impact would be. Similar to the councillor Duff's question this morning, if you were to start maintaining more unformed roads, what would that cost you on your OPEX budget per year to do that? So very much keen to work in that space, because particularly as officers, when it comes to the maintenance budget, because we're all trying to go to that zero budget mode, and if we want to do more, we can easily turn around and say, look, that's going to cost us an extra 10,000 a year. But even if we don't know that exact figure, at least we've got some numbers to work up on from our service level reviews, particularly in maintenance. Parks is a great example too, where depending on how much services we provide across your service levels there, what can you afford? It gives you some really good options. And the big thing is once we start to implement some of these things, it gives us an opportunity to go back in 6 months, 9 months and 12 months and just review how we're actually going. So you can say, well, maybe it is costing us more than what we thought it would be, particularly if we haven't tracked them in the past. So, I think it's a great opportunity to really move through the next 12 months and then definitely the year after, so that when you start to move into these more complex projects, you can start to really get a feel for what that's going to do in that impact. So, yep.
And just my other question was just around the costs in terms of and the resourcing to do this properly. So I just wanted to make sure that that's covered in our current operational costs budget.
Yep. So through Mr. Mayor, we've made an allowance in James's team this year to do that work. Obviously, the money that we have is to bring in external resources to assist us in developing up that. It's like anything. If we go too far down the rabbit hole, there's an expectation from us that officers will do a chunk of the work. But what we're currently carrying money for the external facilitator and also an external resource to come in and workshop with the managers to work out what information they should be presenting to council around what it costs them to produce those things. So what we'll find, I think, is, again, similar to the asset management plans, you'll have different levels of maturity through the organisation, where some parts won't have those costs, but what we would say is we'll do an estimate of what we think that service may cost. For example, if you wanted to mow every footpath, we don't know what that would cost, but we can do an example that, we do so many Ks per day and all that sort of stuff. And then we can say for the next 6 months, we'll track that and actually report back and see how we're going. So we are carrying probably to a level of expectation from us that we'll be able to produce a body of work. If there's not a lot of detail behind existing data, if there was to be a complex bit of work done, then we would definitely have to talk to council around providing resources. It may be that we make some assumptions in the first half of the year for this project, and then we do a further body of work in the second half of the calendar year as part of the next round of improvement items to say, we want to do a further review on these things. The big opportunity there too is obviously the implementation of maintenance management across the board. Obviously the Works Department is targeting to get systems up and running this financial year. There's a good opportunity for us to come back and review, but you may proceed to implementing maintenance standards once you set those service levels for the next year, if that makes sense, Councillor. So I think it's one that we just probably need to keep a little bit fluid, but we definitely have. I think everyone wants the same outcome here. So, so the properties group, they've already got to implement and develop those service levels, but obviously trying to quantify their backlog and those sort of things. I think Leanne's looking at a system, Pete, at the moment to put in Delta S. So once those systems come online, we can start to report to council on a regular basis and say, hey, here's what your actual maintenance is costing you. So that's the hope anyway. And whatever we don't achieve this year, we definitely want to roll that into the following operational plan for further improvement. So does that answer your question, Councillor?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just closing the loop to support Aaron and his vision for the future there. From a financial perspective, we're looking at the moment to restructure the finance department, and part of that restructure is identifying the skills of very highly skilled professional staff that I do have. One of those staff is very, very skilled in asset management. She's a qualified accountant, and she now will be the conduit between finance and the infrastructure team. So you've got that financial component as well, that engineering component that will be able to bring better reports back to council, and we'll have the 10-year forecasts and projections. And my vision is that that officer will be working hand in hand with all the managers here to say, this is the financial impact of this project, and these are the assumptions used for the 10-year forecast. So it'll be a more professional thing. We can report in more detail to council about the sustainability and the impacts.
Thanks very much, General Managers. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering, with regards to the development and maintenance service levels for NRM and parks and the asset program for parks and NRM. Is it? I know some councils are as sophisticated as to go down the path of having tree planting strategies and also open space plans and going right down to drought tolerant plants and stuff like that. Is that something that we can look at, like having, instead of, I know we plant trees here and there, but I'd like to see an overall tree planting strategy and replacement strategy, and then also with regards to our plantings, that we get some consistency and some strategies and policies around what we, drought tolerant plants or whatever we want to do. Can that fit into this?
Yeah, yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's exactly the sort of thing that we've been looking at. We have been talking with council over the last month or two about actually getting those plans together. Part of this is we'll be going down to understanding the areas that we mow and the costing of those sort of things. But similar to the street furniture plans that Aaron was talking about before, we want to get extend that CBD stuff out into the park, so we can get a catalogue together for that. So part of it will be you have your preferred species lists and where they would go, your tree planting where they would go. Yeah, it'll be, as we develop it, I suppose it'll be priorities as we get. We won't get everything within the next 3 to 6 months or whatever. So, but as we work through, that's the idea, is actually to get that sort of thing together.
So really, General Manager, then those master plans, just as we talked about design for CBD redevelopments and so forth, they'll feed into this process and collecting that data and putting that together for this ongoing program, I'd imagine.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. This one here will be primarily looking at your assets and your service capital and your maintenance strategies going forward. What I would suggest to council is once you work out your costs, I would actually, if you want to do a policy for not roads, for parks and gardens, you would bring that as part of your operational plan for next year. So you would this won't design your plans for your towns, but it'll determine what your service levels are for maintenance in those towns and those sort of things, Mayor. So what I would say, they're definitely connected on the back of your question to Peter there, councillor. What I would say is that the idea of this project is specifically to look through and say, how often do you mow your parks? How often do you paint your benches? How often do you grade your roads? How much does it cost you? And then what that does is, my way of thinking, that there will actually be a pile of, a bit like doing the asset management plan, there will be a pile of improvement items that will fall out of here, because I don't think you'll solve every issue. But what you'll say is, these are things that we need to do over the next 6 to 12 months as a council to do another look at, unsealed roads or something like that, to see what your capital costs are or those sort of things. Or you might turn around and say, well, look, we want to look at how we might, gain some efficiencies in some areas that we think the unit rate might be too high, and that's the body of work for the next operational plan. Those sort of things. It's just, this is really to get you on the right path of, I think, where you wanted to be, Mayor. So.
Yeah, so clearly this will be putting together a program, a strategy by which we can get some proper forward planning around renewals, maintenance, service levels around maintenance, and then that links through to our long-term financial planning, so that we're making sure that we're in a position to be able to, year in, year out, moving forward over the next 10 years, fund the renewals to those assets, the repairs to those assets in our operational budget. And it's really moving that process from what's been a reactive process to a proactive process, isn't it? Where we're ahead of the game in this space. And for the benefit of the community, what we're discussing here cuts across all asset classes for council. So when we talk about council's forward plans for renewing your assets, for maintaining the assets, we're talking about renewals and maintenance on roads. We're talking about renewals and maintenance on sewerage pipes and facilities. We're talking about that on water assets, on parks and gardens, on building assets, halls, and whatever else we own. So it cuts across all asset classes, and it will give us some really good data that we can do some much more careful planning around. So, Councillor Duff, does that answer the question?
Just not exactly, because service levels does include, to my way of thinking, it would include where we were going to plant flowers. And like, I know that this time we didn't plant a lot of flowers in different areas of different towns, and that's a service level. So wouldn't that then fall into this? Like, which gardens are we going to plant out? Like, or are we going to cut down on gardens, or are we going to have more gardens, or all of that stuff is still service level and what the expectation of our community is about, you know, their town beautification.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, 100%. Yeah, you're quite correct. It'll be around what you do. Probably my comment before was if you're lacking information in that area and you need to develop a plan or something off the back of that, then you would fall that into your next operational plan. So probably from our point of view, it's not about us designing garden beds or just want to be clear, if you want to develop garden beds, say in Mergen, for example, this project is not, it would be to cost the development and implementation of maintaining garden beds, but it's not actually to do any physical creation of a service level, if that makes sense. So what it might be is if you don't have information, probably the point around if you wanted a tree planting policy, then it might be a follow this project that you need to develop a tree planting policy, and then that would be your next body of work because you want to put trees on all your town streets or something like that. Does that make sense, Councillor?
You comfortable with that, Councillor Duff? So, yeah, so that renewal of those flower gardens, for example, the ongoing maintenance of those would be informed by this. Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, thanks very much, everyone involved in that conversation. So we'll now ask for someone to move that this report to council be received and noted for information. Thanks, Councillor Potter. We have a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. On to item 7.1 at 30, which is the Local Disaster Management Water and Wastewater Portfolio Report. It's my pleasure to invite Councillor Frodo to present such.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, local disaster management. The South Bennett Local Disaster Management Group is still at alert. The South Bennett Local Disaster Management Group will be holding an exercise on the 10th of December, which will involve our water and wastewater team to run through our Gordon Brook Dam Emergency Action Plan. At this time, the status of the group will be reviewed and discussed with the current COVID-19 situation. Recently, our disaster management officers, myself and Councillor Potter, attended a meteorology for disaster managers masterclass. This was a very involved session and provided very informative information in relation to the weather and the weather forecasting. In addition, the human and social and economic subgroup continue to remain engaged with the South Bennett Local Disaster Recovery Group and is still at lean forward. They are continuing to assist with the coordination and communications for community recovery as required. South Bennett has recently carried out an evacuation centre audit of our 6 named evacuation centres to ensure we are prepared for the upcoming season. Water and wastewater. The following are current and planned works as of the 20th of November this year. The capital works for the 2021 and current water main replacements are as follows. Youngman Street North, trunk water main replacement. Green Street, residential water main replacement. And in Wando we have Haley Street from Hodge Street to Scott Street, trunk residential water main replacement. And regional, across the board, we have 1,000 water metres to be replaced. The Class A recycled water facilities in Wandoi, the construction of the new Class A recycled water facilities at Wandoi. The replacement of reservoir roof at Arana is to be completed by February, and the SCADA and cyber security updates is to replace the assisting SCADA and rationalise and regionalise the system. And Gordon Brook Dam, the spillway design is still on track. Restriction and dam levels as of the 20th of 11th, 2020. The key highlights are still, all towns still remain on level 3 water restrictions. And Council continues to monitor the water storage throughout the region with current levels at Binduma of 30.2%, BP 11.4%, Gordon Brook Dam 55.4% and Boo Bear Dam 22%. The key highlights, the Blackbutt Irrigators update. Councillor Jones and myself and the Water Department met with Blackbutt Irrigators regarding their watering requirements for the remainder of the financial year. The meeting was very beneficial, with all agreeing to reduce consumption to the bare minimum. Council will continue to monitor with the allocation usage and work within schemes to target usage remains within the yearly combined allocations. The reactive works year to date, council staff have attended 49 sewer requests for this financial year, and council staff have attended 362 water requests this financial year. The capital works that have been completed is the replacement of the reservoir roof, Scott Street and Wandai, and the sewer relining, the relining pipes and manholes in Wandai, Mergen and Nanango. Just have some breaking news is that the Banarkan standpipe is having technical issues at the moment with their Wi-Fi. The standpipe is deducting the money but not delivering the water to the users. So we're asking the people to fill up in Blackbutt while we can rectify this problem. And the users that have been affected, the money will be back in credited to their card, and it should take about a week. But if you're experiencing any issues, please contact council and we can assist. And we apologise for any inconvenience that this may have caused to the Banarkan residents and ones using the Banarkan standpipe. Hang on. Now, my infrastructure series. Infrastructure series is today recycled water. South Bennett Regional Council's Kingaroy wastewater treatment plant produces recycled water. Class A irrigation water is provided to Kingaroy Golf Club, Kingaroy Cricket, AFL grounds and the rugby league fields, soccer fields and also the showgrounds. Class C irrigation water supplies South Bennett Regional Council's irrigation farm, and the remaining treated effluent is discharged to the receiving environment. What is the difference between water classification? The public health regulation defines the water classes and end use. Class A irrigation water is treated through screening, biological treatment, coagulation, filtration, ultraviolet disinfection, and chemical disinfection. Regular analytical testing is required to ensure the quality and supply. What discharge regulations and environmental benefits of Class A? The treatment process prioritises supply to the Class A water treatment facility to ensure demands. Following this, the remaining percentage is supplied to the Class C lagoons for irrigation use. The remaining water is discharged as surface water to the receiving environment under strict environmental conditions. What benefits of Class A recycled water? Class A recycled water reduces the demand on potable water supplies, utilising Class on sporting facilities. Class A on sporting facilities results in cheaper operating costs for the facilities and reduces our environment impact on the river systems. And we also have a couple of photos of the Kingaroy sporting fields, which uses our Class A recycle filters, and the sand filter and pump skids out Wandai. Mayor, councillors, gallery, I'd like to move my local disaster management, water and wastewater portfolio report. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks very much, Councillor Froelich. Very comprehensive report and some really good work happening there. Do we have a seconder for such? Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillors, observations, questions to the report? Councillor Henson.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, just an observation in relation to the past month with rainfall events, and just like to bring to people's attention, I watched this closely, as you well know. There was some overland flow and only a couple of creeks / rivers run water. I brought that to the Chamber's attention at the last monthly meeting. Boondoomba Dam, just for the record, with that overland flow, when it was measured at 0.8 out at Boondoomba, it's gone from 30.2% in November the 4th, 30.7% to 30.2%. So that overland flow is equated to virtually zero in four weeks' time. So I stress the importance of water and And flow, we need some substantial rain to increase these percentages in these dams. If we run through BP Dam from a month ago was 11.7 to 11.4 today, and Gordon Brook and Booby are similar circumstances. So let's, Kathy, Councillor Duff, hope and pray we get some rain. Thank you.
Yeah, a really important observation. Thanks, Councillor Henson. Those dam levels continue to be a concern, as is the lack of rainfall right across our region. And I'd just like to reiterate, for the benefit of the media and in the community, that we do have level 3 restrictions, and we really require the community to work with council here for the benefit of the entire region to make sure that everyone is complying with those level 3 restrictions. The information is available on council's website, and we'd encourage everyone in the community to make themselves, inform themselves in relation to those restrictions. Our compliance officers will be out and about and increasing compliance services in this space over the coming months, to ensure that those level 3 restrictions are maintained and enforced where necessary, because we are getting into a situation now, as Councillor Hitch was saying, that is quite critical for our region. And no doubt, if we don't get rain, General Manager will be reviewing that level 3 restriction, I'd imagine, in the new year.
Oh, there's too many on, sorry. Yep. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. At this stage, we'll continue to monitor the water usage. I believe there's no standing committees in January, but we are actually looking to book in a workshop with council in February to come back and revisit water restrictions. Just on the back of obviously the councillors' visit with Tim to the Blackbutt irrigators. I think they had a great engagement, and just prior to us looking at how those restrictions work, it's a great opportunity for us to work with them also to see what their needs are and understand that, so that when we workshop the water restrictions with council in February, we can be fully informed of those, particularly of those rural users and what those needs are as well. So even whether it rains or not, we plan on bringing those back into councils, because we think we need to get those reviewed so that we understand what those triggers are. And like everyone says, we hope for rain through December and January, but we'll see what we get.
Thanks, General Manager. Just also, while I've just got the floor, a couple of observations there. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Froloff and Councillor Hench and Councillor Duff, everyone that's been involved in working with General Manager and Manager Tim on the Class A recycled water to the Wondai sports fields. I know that's going to support a number of sporting facilities, including the Golf Sports Club, the Bowls Club, all of the other sporting clubs there. It's a tremendous development, using that recycled water to keep those sporting fields in good condition. So well done, congratulations everyone. And also to acknowledge the work that's being done by our two councillors, our Chair of LDMG, Councillor Froloff, and our Deputy Chair, Councillor Potter, in preparing for the upcoming potentially fire and flood season, particularly with the audit that's been undertaken on the six evacuation centres, and to yourself, General Manager, as the local coordinator. Congratulations. It's good to see that we're ahead of the game there again in those areas with fire and flood. So thank you. Councillor Hench, we'll come back to you shortly, but I'm holding off Councillor Potter, if that's okay. Councillor Potter?
Yeah, look, I know you said we discussed the restriction levels, but I've just noticed that since this report is written, this report said 11.4, but right now BP Dam is actually sitting at 10.7. So that's like a week, and that's actually quite concerning to me. So is that going to be an issue for the Mergen and Wondai people?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this stage, no, because we have additional allocation there. We still have a full allocation of high priority water. BP Dam significantly dropped off, getting down to, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor and Tim, probably around 3.5%, 4.5%. So we think we have adequate time to workshop that through with council. At the moment, the medium priorities were still given a small allocation, which was beyond the threshold. So obviously there's some method to that's been looked at by Sunwater. It's a dam which is interesting because it held there for a long time at 7 and 8%. So unfortunately, it's one of those how long's a piece of string ones. But at this stage, we don't believe council needs to, given our water consumption at the moment is still around that 130, 140 litres per person a day. The people of South Burnett, as a mess, are doing a tremendous job. They really are, which is fantastic. While that's there, we've definitely got to be able to give some capacity to council to consider those water restrictions in February. And February is actually a really good time because we're starting to walk into whether we've received that rain or not through that December, January period, where we think if we start workshopping at that stage, that means we can then review again in March if we want to, and that'll allow us to really review how dams have gone through that period of time. So your point's duly noted that it's dropped down quite considerably, but we would say that there's a little bit of impact from the MP allocation there that's causing some of that possibly, but we'll look at that further.
Yeah, thanks, General Manager. Back to you, Councillor Henson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. On a irrelevant but not irrelevant note in relation to water and our current climate, I'd just like to bring it to everybody's attention, not only in this room but to the gallery and to the public, that we're experiencing severe heat conditions as well. Our evaporation rates will skyrocket over the next 2 or 3 months, but not only that, I can't emphasise enough people's safety and health and well-being, because our elderly, the animals, I'd really like to put it out there that everyone be very, very diligent, regardless of we're on level 3 restrictions, our elderly folk and our kids and our animals. Thank you.
Yeah, really good point, Councillor Henson. That can't go unspoken about and unnoticed, that these heat wave conditions come with public health risk, and we'd be certainly sending that message out to the community, as you're saying, to be very mindful, particularly the elderly people and the children. So, point well made. Thank you, Councillor Henson. Okay, if there's no further commentary on the report, those in favour of the acceptance of Councillor Frollo's report? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. We don't have any confidential items for today's committee meeting, so I'll now move that we close the meeting. Do we have a seconder for such? Oh, we don't need to do that. I always get that wrong. Okay. So, meeting closed at 11:34 a.m. Thank you all for your attendance.